Hi guys, in this video I cover the if-else condition. I start out by explaining the syntax and then I go over some examples. The syntax looks similar like an if condition. It starts out with the if keyword followed by a condition in parentheses and then a code block, often called the then block. After the then block there's the else keyword followed by another code block, often called the else block. Depending on this condition, one of these blocks is executed. So this expression here is executed if it is true, the statements in the then block are executed. If this condition is false, the statements in the else block are executed. It's never the case that none of these blocks are executed. So one or the other will always be executed. Let's take a look at an example. I declare a variable of type int, a number. Then I prompt the user to enter a number. I read that input into my variable. And then I use an if-else block to check if the entered number is 0 or positive or if it's negative. So I first check if the number is larger or equal to 0. Then I output you entered a positive number. Now if it's not larger or equal to 0, then I use the else block. So the else block is always when this executed when this condition is false. Here I output you entered a negative number. And after that, I output the end. When I execute this, I get the prompt. Here I enter 5. Now 5 compared to 0 is larger than 0, so this condition is true. It enters the then block and executes the statements here. There's a single statement, so it outputs you entered a positive number. And after that, it continues execution after the entire if-else condition. So this is the output here, the end. I'll add a line break here and execute this again. This time I enter a negative value, negative 5. So compares negative 5 to 0 and checks if negative 5 is larger or equal to 0. This condition is false. Because it's false, it executes the statement in the else block. And then continues execution after the else blocks and outputs the end. Now, sometimes you may think that you don't need to do anything or you don't have any statements that you want to execute in the then block, but you only have statements that you want to execute in the else block. You really have a logical error in your condition. What you want to do is, in that case, change the condition here, that the condition only applies to the else block. To give you a quick example here, I will show you how we can change these two blocks. In this case, I do condition if number and the opposite side, opposite here of larger or equal to is less than 0. I have the then block and I have the else block here. And now the else block up here, the statement that's in the else block, I copy to the then block. The statement that's in the then block, I copy to the else block. So to better understand what I did here, we have really large or very small negative numbers, if you will, all the way to 0 and up all the way to 100 and beyond. So up here I checked if the number is larger or equal to 0. This is all the range of numbers here and beyond 100. Now, if this is false, if it's not one of these values, it can only be in the values on the opposite side of the spectrum. It has to be a negative value here. So if I changed this condition, I would basically check if it's a negative value, And if this is true, it would enter the block here. Otherwise, it's one of the values I had defined up here. So less than is the opposite of larger or equal to. Let's test this out. So I run this, and I first enter a positive value. What do I expect now? It checks the condition up here. 5 is larger or equal to 0. This is true, so we'll output you entered a positive number. After that, it outputs the end, and now checks if 5 is less than 0. This is false, so it enters the else block, and again outputs you entered a positive number. So I hit enter, and here you can see it outputted you entered a positive number once, and it entered you entered a positive number twice. It's a different condition, and all I did was swap these two blocks. So if, for example, I wouldn't have any statements here, I could change the condition to just use the statements in the else block in my then block. This really demonstrates that how you work out your conditions, this is how they apply to the statements in the different blocks. If I run this and enter a negative number, let's say -10, I get 2 times you entered a negative number. The first time it executed the else block because -10 is not larger or equal to 0. And the second time -10 is less than 0, it entered the then block. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.